Shifted hearts. I wasn't supposed to shift that night. I was supposed to be in the archives, sipping cold coffee, cataloging treaties that smelled like mildew and old ambition. The biggest drama in my life was whether the pack historian would ever fix the broken AC vent or just let me slowly turn into wolf jerky. Instead, the universe said, "Surprise, sweetheart," and threw me into a back alley brawl with a rogue, a terrified child, and one very inconvenient soulmate. The first time I felt my bones crack, it wasn't pretty or mystical. There was no glowing aura, no angelic choir, just agony that felt personal, like the moon had waited 25 years to kick me in the ribs and say, "Wake up, you late-blooming idiot." And when I opened my eyes in that new body, fur slick with rain, instincts howling, everything smelled sharper, louder, more alive, including him. Kieran Holt, pack enforcer, stoic, scarred, perfectly infuriating. The man I'd secretly loved since I was 16, and he caught me stealing cinnamon rolls from the pack kitchen. He was the scent that pulled me through my first breath as a wolf. Smoke, cedar, danger. I didn't know what the universe was trying to say, but my newly awakened wolf purred, "Mine." Unfortunately, fate doesn't read the room. Because the first words I heard after the screaming stopped were his, rough, steady, professional. "Lyra. Don't." And then another voice, soft and certain. "Kieran, love, he's just a child. We've got him Tessa Dre, his imprint, his bond, his everything. If you believe fate can be cruel, hit subscribe. I'm Lyra Vale, 25, pack archivist, certified overthinker, and freshly awakened Omega. And this? This is the story of how my wolf found her voice. My heart broke beautifully, and I learned that sometimes fate's worst joke is the one where it makes you strong. Chapter 1. It started with screaming. Not mine, for once. I was walking home from the archive, balancing a box of old scrolls and an existential crisis, when a kid's voice cut through the rain, high-pitched, terrified, the kind of scream that turns your bones liquid. I dropped the box, papers scattering like panicked birds, and ran. The scent hit me before the scene did, copper and rot. Rogue A-shifter whose wolf had snapped too far from sanity, now half man, half nightmare. He had a little boy cornered against a graffiti wall, claws glinting under the flickering streetlight. "Hey!" I yelled. "Step away from the kid, Cujo." Yeah, because sarcasm is the best weapon when facing a creature with fangs longer than my rent agreement. The rogue snarled, saliva stringing between jagged teeth. The boy, no older than 8, was crying silently now, eyes wide and glassy. Something primal surged in me then. Not fear, not bravery, instinct. My pulse stuttered once, then roared to life, and suddenly everything broke. The world tilted. My spine lit up like a struck match. Bones cracked, lengthened, rearranged. My scream turned to a howl as fur burst along my arms and my senses exploded open. Rain sizzling against asphalt, the metallic tang of blood, the rogue's scent like rotting pine. I didn't think. I leapt. He was faster, heavier, older in his madness. But I was angrier. My wolf was newborn and furious. A storm with training wheels. We collided midair, claws against claws, teeth scraping over fur. Pain burned through me, sharp but electric, alive. He pinned me once, jaws snapping an inch from my throat, but something inside me answered with a growl that didn't sound like mine, deeper, older, laced with the moon's pulse. Then I bit back, hard. Blood splattered. The rogue stumbled. I shoved him off and braced to finish it. And that's when the air shifted. A familiar scent flooded the alley. Smoke, pine, iron control. "Lyra!" "Kieran!" He came in like a storm wearing a badge, tactical jacket, jeans, boots that looked born for kicking down doors and hearts. His voice was command, his stance all-purpose. But when his gaze met mine, his control faltered. I could smell the shock on him. And something else. Recognition. "Stand down," he barked at the rogue, even though the creature was already limping away, growling low and wild. Kieran didn't hesitate. He moved with clean, brutal efficiency, silver cuffs snapping around the rogue's wrists. One twist, one pulse of power, and the threat was done. Then he turned to me. Our eyes met. I swear the air thickened. The rain stopped out of respect. His pupils blew wide, hazel swallowed by gold. My wolf trembled inside me, not in fear, but want. "Lyra," he said again, softer this time. "You shifted." My wolf tilted her head like, "Yeah, and you're welcome for the assist." But I was too new, too unsteady. I tried to answer, but it came out as a sharp, confused yip. Graceful, I know. Behind him, another voice, gentle, lilting, familiar. Tessa Dre, healer's daughter. Every inch of her glowed with warmth, sunlight on a winter day. She crouched beside the boy, her movements calm and practiced. "Kieran, he's okay," she said, touching his arm with quiet certainty. Superficial scratches, no silver burn. Her hand lingered. The air between them shimmered faintly. The imprint bond. You could see it if you were sensitive to that kind of thing. A faint golden thread pulsing between their hearts. I shouldn't have been able to see it. But I did. My wolf did. And it hurt. When she finally turned to me, her expression was gentle, not jealous. "Lyra, love, you're safe. Can you shift back?" I focused on her voice, on the feeling of my body, on the weight of fur and bone. And somehow, the magic obeyed. My form shivered, bent, and folded until I was on my knees, panting, rain-slick, and half-naked in the alley. Kieran looked away instantly, jaw tight, like my bare skin offended his moral code. Tessa shrugged off her jacket and draped it over my shoulders. "Thank you," I whispered, voice raw. "You saved him," she said softly. "That's what matters." Kieran's voice was rough when he finally spoke again. "You shouldn't have been here." "Yeah," I coughed. "Next time I'll let the child handle the rogue himself." He glared, and it was unfair how good he looked doing it. "You could have died." "I could have also stayed home and alphabetized scrolls," I shot back. "But look at me now, character development." A ghost of a smile flickered across his face. Brief, dangerous, gone too fast. Then the enforcer returned. "We'll escort you home." "The Alpha will want a report," he said it like a command, like he hadn't just stared at me like I was something holy and forbidden. Tessa helped the boy into the medic's car when backup arrived. She didn't say much. She didn't have to. Her hand brushed Kieran's wrist in a gesture that said everything I wasn't supposed to hear. The bond between them pulsed. Warm. Alive. Complete. I felt mine reach for his. That instinctive, primal tether that comes with finding your fated mate. But it hit a wall, like knocking on a door someone else already lived behind. It burned. Kieran's eyes met mine one last time. "Go home, Lyra," he said quietly. "We'll talk tomorrow." I nodded because words were too fragile. As I turned away, Tessa's voice followed, light but edged. "You did good tonight." And she meant it. She really did. Which somehow made it worse. I walked home through rain that didn't bother hiding its sympathy. Every step echoed the same cruel rhythm in my chest. He's yours, but he's hers. He's yours, but he's hers. At my apartment door, I looked up at the bruised sky and whispered, "If this is fate's idea of a meet cute, I want a refund." My wolf huffed inside me, sarcastic, wounded, alive. "Welcome to the pack, sweetheart. Would you forgive your fated mate if he already belonged to someone else? Or would you let your wolf burn the whole bond down? Tell me in the comments. I promise I won't judge, only sip tea dramatically." Chapter 2. Morning tasted like pennies and bad decisions. I woke up tangled in sheets that smelled faintly of wet fur and disinfectant. Apparently I'd showered on autopilot at some point, and then face-planted into bed with my towel as a blanket, which is exactly the kind of glamorous post-shift routine they never show in the documentaries. Every muscle ached. My throat felt scraped raw from howling I pretended I hadn't done. My phone was a crime scene. 22 missed texts, 7 voicemails, 3 "Are you alive?" messages from Juno, and one cheerful banner from my bank offering to raise my credit limit, which felt like an attack. I dragged on sweats, discovered a claw mark in my favorite cardigan, rude, and called the one person who always knew when my life was about to perform a cartwheel. Aunt Sarah answered on the first ring. Tell me why I woke up at 3 a.m. with my heart doing salsa. Because fate is petty, I croaked. Also, I shifted. A beat. Then, oh, sweetheart. Something clattered, probably her setting down her book and picking up her emergency omelet pan. Get over here. The tea is already judging you. Her little kitchen was a shrine to found family, Polaroids on the fridge, herbs hanging to dry, a chipped blue table that had seen everything from breakups to birthday cakes. She pressed a mug into my hands, patted my cheeks like I'd run a fever, and surveyed me the way healers do before a diagnosis. You're humming, she said. Is that fatal? It's adorable. She tipped her head. Your wolf is loud. She's chatty, I admitted, and she snored when I tried to nap. Aunt Sarah folded me into a hug that smelled like rosemary and laundry detergent. Tell me everything. So I did. The alley, the boy, the pain. The moment the world went crystalline and cruel. The way Kieran had said my name like it mattered, then said, go home like it didn't. Tessa's gentle hands, steady voice, wedding band warmth without the ring. When I finished, Sarah slid a plate of eggs and toast across to me like a peace treaty. Eat. Cry later. I'm fine, I lied, because lies taste better with butter. She smirked. You are my niece by choice, not by blood. I know your tells. Your left eyebrow is attempting to secede. I touched it self-consciously. Do we know if it's real? I asked. The bond. With Kieran, her eyes softened. Fated bonds do not ask permission, darling, and they don't always care about timing. I hate that for me. I hate it too. She squeezed my hand. Imprints and fates are different songs. Some people get both. Some get neither. Some... Her smile turned crooked. Get a chorus and a drumline and regret. Is there a version where I get a refund? She slid the salt across the table. There's a version where you eat and then go to the debrief like a responsible member of society. I groaned. I love accountability. It's my favorite. She flicked my forehead. Be kind to yourself. And listen, late awakenings are messy. Your senses will misbehave. You may smell your neighbor's laundry and cry about fabric softener. You might dream other people's memories. Ground yourself. Cold glass, hot tea, bare feet on tile. And if your wolf gets grabby, give her a job. Count heartbeats. Name 6 scents you can smell I breathed in. Your rosemary. My sweater, toast, cheap dish soap, rain, and me good girl, she said softly. Go. The Packhouse conference room had that particular air of controlled crisis. Coffee rings, clipped voices, the Alpha's crest glinting like a reminder that none of us were here to play. Kieran stood at the head of the table, stance easy, eyes exhausted. Tessa sat to his right with a notepad and competence. A cluster of junior enforcers lounged at the opposite end, pretending they weren't vibrating with curiosity about the late bloomer who had turned a rogue into street pizza. I slid into a chair like a student arriving late to a class she'd accidentally enrolled in. The moment Kieran's gaze found me, the bond thread tightened, a soft tug under my sternum. He looked away first. Professional. We neutralized the rogue, he said, voice steady. No silver contamination. One civilian minor, treated and released cause? Asked Beta Marsh, brisk and bored. Unclear, Kieran said. His eyes had the glassy marbling we're seeing in the East Side incidents. No pack scent. Contract work is likely contract rogues, Marsh muttered. Cowards. The Alpha wasn't present, something about a boundary dispute up north, but the room still acted like he was listening. Archivist Vale, Marsh said, suddenly pinning me with a look. Congratulations on your awakening. Grounding protocol? Cold glasses and counting, I said. Also sarcasm. A chuckle rippled. Kieran didn't smile. He was busy not looking at me. Tessa did the smiling for him, small, genuinely warm. "We can set up sessions," she said. "Breathwork, sensory management." "Thank you," I said. After logistics and patrol assignments, people stood, scraped chairs, murmured congratulations. Pax, sweet kid with a permanent cowlick, leaned in with a grin. "Heard you went full silver on your first night." "Sick fell into a dumpster," I said. "I'm like a majestic swan, if swans regularly panic ate street fries." He laughed, saluted, and fled. The room thinned until it was just me, Kieran, and Tessa. The air changed. It always does when conversations lose their audience. Tessa capped her pen, eyes flicking between us like she could read the undercurrent but refused to drown in it. "How's your chest?" she asked Kieran softly, fingertips ghosting near where the rogue's claws had scraped him last night. "Any deep stitch pain?" "Fine," he said. It was almost true. The wound looked clean, bonded at the edges. But I could smell the ache. My wolf whined before I could shut her up. Tessa heard it. Of course she did. She met my gaze, steady. "Lyra, love," she said, gentle as a hand on a fevered brow. "I'm glad you're okay." I nodded. The words made a fissure in me anyway. "Thanks." Kieran cleared his throat like he was preparing to swallow glass. "Lyra!" "Don't," I said too quickly, then softened it. "Please." He shut his mouth with visible effort. The room hummed. Somewhere down the hall, a radio crackled, the sound of other people's problems. "I'll put you on a training schedule," he said finally, professional. "Pax can run you through defensive drills. I'll supervise." "Right. Because watching me flail is your love language." He flinched. Tessa's eyes flickered. "I meant supervise as enforcer," he said, voice flat. "For safety." "Of course," I said, equally flat. "For safety." He took a step like distance could fix what proximity had broken. "We'll get you support." "What I need is a time machine," I said. "But I'll settle for coffee." Tessa's mouth curved, then straightened. "You did good, Lyra." "Truly, don't be nice to me," I blurted, then winced. "Sorry, that came out feral, it came out human," she said. "We'll be okay." "We," such an optimistic word. I left before my eyes did something dramatic and inconvenient. In the hallway, I pressed my palms to a cold window and counted 6 scents. Disinfectant, printer toner, rain, leather, Tessa's chamomile, Kieran's cedar. I breathed until my ribcage stopped pretending it was a trap. The archives were a balm. Old paper, cloth bindings. The little green banker's lamp that made everyone look like a more serious version of themselves. I locked the door, turned on music low enough to be an alibi, and got to work. The rogue incident had included a deposit from the city's CCTV archive, so I filed the report, labeled the footage, and pretended I wasn't waiting for a text that would be both a relief and a haunting. Power glitch number 1 happened at 11:03 a.m. I was cataloging a box from the early 20th century, wax-sealed letters bound with sun-browned ribbon, when the ribbon slithered loose on its own. The top letter lifted a corner as if nudged by breath. My wolf stilled. The hairs on my arms prickled. "Absolutely not," I told the universe, because I have seen this movie. The letter did it again. Like a dog scooting its butt on a carpet, it inched toward me with papery dignity. Fine. I broke the seal. 3 crescent moons intertwined with a thorned vine, and slid the sheet out. The handwriting spooled across the page like silk. "To the one who finds this under a cursed moon." They said I was a coward to cut a bond the gods had stitched. They called the rite a sin with flowers. But what else do you do when love is dying and fate is asleep? You wake it, you bleed, and you pay. Something cold uncoiled in my stomach. The sigil, the legend, the thorn bond, an outlawed rite that rerouted destiny with blood. My wolf pressed her nose to the ink, curious and wary. "I'm not interested," I told the letter, which was a very normal sentence to say out loud. My phone buzzed. Juno. Proof of life check. Also, the bar's espresso machine is making a noise like a haunted goat. Me, alive, and rude to history. Tell the goat I said same. Juno, come by later? I'll make you a not falling for taken men mocktail. Ingredients, hubris, glitter, me. Add ice, my dignity runs hot. I shoved the letter back into its box and reached for a neutral task. Labeling treaties, wiping the glass display case where the Alpha's great-great-grandmother's oath blade sat. Ceremonial, dulled, still capable of cutting a finger if you were careless and fate wanted content. I told myself the letter was a fluke, old glue, drafty vents, ghosts with a flair for stationery. Power glitch number 2 happened when I made toast on the tiny archive hot plate and promptly forgot I was not in my kitchen. The smoke alarm howled. I howled back. I opened the window. The toast looked like a crime of passion. Okay, I told my wolf, who was laughing at me in the quiet way that sounds like breath. We're feral. But we're charming. I was still airing out my dignity when the door opened and Kieran stepped in like a weather event. The bond pull snapped my spine straight. We stared at each other for a second too long. He lifted a bag. Brought coffee. Oh, I said, disarmed. Thank you. I burned toast. I can smell that, he said, setting the cups down. And despair. He wore his off-duty clothes, gray t-shirt, dark jeans, the hoodie that made him look less like an enforcer and more like someone you'd ask to fix your sink and accidentally marry. A bandage peeked under his collar where claws had kissed skin. Every cell in me took notes. You shouldn't be here, I said, echoing him from last night without meaning to. Probably not, he said. But I am. We fell into that precarious mock normal that people do when there's a cliff between them and they're both pretending it's a curb. He asked about the archives. I said something sarcastic about treaties written by wolves who were terrible at commas. He smiled with his eyes and not his mouth. Then he saw the open box, the seal, the letter I'd only mostly put away. His body changed temperatures. Where did you get that? It opened, I said, heat flushing my neck. On its own. He closed the distance in 3 strides, careful not to touch me, careful like I was gasoline and he was a man with a match. He stared at the sigil as if it had crawled out of a grave. Thorn bonds are outlawed for a reason, Lyra. I know the reason, I said, bristling. I read faster than I flirt. He looked up sharply, pain flickering behind his eyes like a storm behind glass. They break people. They cut bonds you can't grow back. I'm not planning any blood rites, I snapped. I can barely operate my toaster. Silence, the kind that hums. He exhaled. I don't want anyone using your heart as a spell ingredient. My mouth went dry. Then don't let them. Something raw moved across his face. He backed away like he'd touched a live wire. Training starts tomorrow, 7 a.m., and I'm sorry. For what? I asked, throat tight. For everything I can't change, he said, and left. I stood there with 2 coffees and a letter that felt like it was breathing. The room tilted, righted itself. I put the Thornbond box on a high shelf and locked the case like that would keep destiny from picking it like a cheap door. By late afternoon, my world had regained a flimsy normal. I filed, I labeled, I Googled how to wolf without crying. I let Juno bully me into promising I'd stop by the bar for fries and mockery. I told myself I was fine. Then my phone vibrated with the one alert that never lies. Archive motion, sensor, after hours, trigger, treaties room. The timestamp said I was still inside the building. The alert said someone else was too. I looked up at the hallway camera feed. The screen flickered. For a heartbeat, the image resolved. An empty corridor, a shadow like the curl of a vine, and the glint of 3 crescent moons drawn faintly in dust. My wolf lifted her head. Every hair on my arms went electric. Okay, I whispered to the air, to the letter, to the part of me that had always loved dangerous stories. If this is a meet cute, I hate it. I grabbed the nearest heavy object, a leather-bound atlas that could concuss a moose. Silenced the alarm so it wouldn't spook whoever was courting arrest, and headed for the treaties room. Heart thundering, mouth dry, fate snickering in the vents. The treaties room looked empty, but the air wasn't. It felt aware, the kind of silence that listens back. I tightened my grip on the atlas and pushed the door open with my foot. The lights flickered once, bathing the shelves in a stuttering amber glow. A draft brushed my skin, cool and deliberate, like the room had lungs and I'd just stepped into its mouth. "Hello?" I called, because horror movie etiquette clearly hadn't killed enough people yet. "If you're here to rob the archives, fair warning, I'm emotionally unstable and armed with geography." No answer. I took another step inside. My boots left wet prints on the marble. The scent hit me first. Wolf, but wrong. No pack trace. A stranger's aura, thick with metallic decay. Then something moved. A shadow uncoiled from behind the treaty cabinet, tall, lean, and not entirely solid. It wore the outline of a man but shimmered, edges blurred like heat above asphalt. For half a heartbeat, my brain said ghost. Then my wolf said no, worse. It tilted its head, eyes like burning ink, and whispered, "Silver heart." The word slid under my skin like ice water. My wolf's hackles shot up. "Run," she snarled. "Right," I breathed. "Good talk." I hurled the atlas. It passed straight through the shadow and hit the opposite wall with a thud that said, "Excellent throw, 0 effect." The figure didn't flinch. Instead, it raised one hand. The air pulsed, and every parchment in the room fluttered off the shelves, swirling like a paper storm. The pages formed a circle around it, spinning faster and faster until words bled off the ink in thin ribbons of light. I stumbled backward. My heel caught a scroll case. I hit the floor hard. The light ribbons wove into a sigil. 3 crescents linked by thorns. The same mark I'd found on that ancient letter. The shadow's voice deepened. The moon made her choice. "Cool," I wheezed. "Could she maybe email it next time?" The symbol flared, and suddenly I wasn't in the archive anymore. The room warped, walls dissolving into silver mist, floor into water. A woman stood before me, cloaked, regal, her eyes mirrors of the moon itself, her voice cut like silk over glass. "Child of the late awakening, you carry 2 halves of a fate undone. One must break, or both will rot," my heart hammered. "Could you be less cryptic and more choose?" The floor cracked. I fell through silver. And then, darkness. I woke up on the archive floor, gasping, papers scattered around me, the motion alarm still blinking red. The sigil on the wall was gone. Only one thing remained. A single word burned into the marble in glowing script. Ronan. I didn't know anyone by that name. Not yet. But my wolf whispered it like a prayer. And fate, well, she just laughed. Chapter 3. The next morning began the way all disasters do. Innocent, caffeine-deprived, and pretending to be fine. I wore sunglasses indoors, partly because my head throbbed and partly because the archive's fluorescent lights were judgmental. My wolf, on the other hand, was thriving. She hummed beneath my skin like an espresso shot that never wore off. Every sound, every scent, every heartbeat in the building painted itself across my nerves. I'd meant to forget the sensor alert, but sleep had been a myth. I'd replayed the flicker of those crescents in dust until my ceiling fan felt personally attacked. When I walked into the archives that morning, I half expected the floor to start whispering my name. It didn't. But it did smell faintly like burned toast, which, unfortunately, was my fault. I'd tried to make breakfast while filing an incident report, and the toaster had decided to reenact a forest fire. So now the room smelled like smoke, my dignity, and too much Febreze. "Hey, archivist," called Pax from the door, grinning. "Smells like progress." "Smells like regret," I said. "Don't you have a rogue to tackle?" He snorted. "Training moved to tomorrow. Kieran's on border patrol. Said to tell you not to blow up the archives." "Oh, sure. Tell him I'm doing my best. Tell me to be normal. Nobody ever tells the toaster anything." He blinked. "I'm gonna not ask." Smart boy. When he left, I put on music, something low and string-heavy, and got back to cataloging. The quiet helped. Words steadied me. But somewhere between an old ledger of treaties and a collection of half-burned oaths, my phone buzzed. Juno, update please. Is your crush still emotionally unavailable, or did fate send a coupon code? Me, same brand, no discount. Juno, tragic. Come to the bar tonight. I'll make you fries and validation. Me, you had me at fries. The distraction helped until the air shifted. You know that feeling when the room goes wrong, the temperature drops by 1 degree and your instincts perk like bad Wi-Fi? Yeah, that. A soft creak came from the back shelves. I froze, toast crumb halfway to my mouth. No footsteps, just breathing, slow, deliberate. Pax? I called. No answer. My wolf surged up, ears forward. Not pack, she whispered. I grabbed the nearest weapon available, a rolled-up treaty from 1894, and tiptoed toward the sound. Each step was a symphony. The creak of the floorboards, the hum of my pulse, the faint rasp of someone moving just beyond the stacks. Then the door opened and I almost screamed. Kieran! Of course it was Kieran. He looked at me, at the treaty I was wielding like a baseball bat, and lifted an eyebrow. Planning to kill me with paperwork? Don't tempt me, I hissed, lowering it. There's been someone in here. Breathing. He tensed instantly, the enforcer re-engaged. Show me. I pointed to the back shelves. He moved with the quiet precision of someone who'd made a career out of hunting nightmares. His hand brushed the small of my back once. Pure instinct, pure protection. But the spark it sent through me was anything but professional. We turned the corner together. Empty. But on the floor, someone had drawn the same sigil I'd seen in the camera feed. 3 crescent moons interlinked by a thorned vine. This time it was traced in something dark and glossy that looked too much like dried blood. Kieran crouched, fingers hovering above it. Hell. Careful, I warned. You touch that, and the next thing you know you're starring in your own supernatural cautionary tale. He shot me a look. Does this happen often? Blood graffiti in your workspace? Only since puberty hit late. His jaw ticked. Lyra, this isn't a joke. Whoever's doing this knows the old language. You think it's about me? He didn't answer, which meant yes. Before I could spiral, another voice spoke from the doorway. Smooth, amused, unfamiliar. Maybe it's not about you. Maybe it's about what woke up with you. We both turned. The man leaning against the frame wasn't Pack. His scent told me that immediately. It was wild, unclaimed, threaded with cedar and wind and something faintly electric. A rogue signature, but clean. He looked like the kind of trouble you wrote songs about. Lean muscle under a travel-worn jacket, dark hair curling at the edges, eyes sharp as cut amber. He grinned. Don't shoot! I knock. Nobody answers. Figured I'd come say hi. Kieran's posture went instantly steel. Name? Ronan Dax. The stranger's tone was easy, but there was a weight beneath it. Wanderer. Passing through. This is private territory, Kieran said. So's Destiny, Ronan said lightly, eyes flicking to me. But she keeps crossing borders. My wolf sat up, tail wagging. Home, she whispered. I blinked. Excuse me? He smiled like he'd heard her too. You smell like a river after lightning. I thought I was imagining it. Guess not. Oh, great, I said. Another poet. The last one tried to sell me essential oils. Kieran stepped between us. You need to leave. I'm not here for a fight, Ronan said, raising both hands. But if you've got thorn marks showing up, you'll want the help of someone who knows the old rights. My wolf bristled. He does know them. Kieran's eyes narrowed. How do you know about that? Because I've seen them, Ronan said simply. Up north, every time an Omega's bond snaps, those crescents appear, sometimes painted, sometimes carved, always followed by death. The silence that followed had teeth. Why tell us? I asked. Because you're humming, he said, loud enough for even the dead to hear. I folded my arms. You're very dramatic for a man who wandered into my office uninvited. Ronan's smile widened. And you're very calm for someone being haunted by old gods. Kieran exhaled slowly. I'll escort you out. Of course you will, Ronan said. Enforcers never change. His gaze flicked back to me. See you around, Lyra Vale. He said my name like he'd always known it. Then he left, just like that. No goodbye, no threat, just the faint scent of wind and distance lingering behind. When the door closed, I realized my heart was hammering. Kieran's wasn't much steadier. Stay away from him, he said finally. Ronan Dax doesn't belong here. Neither do I said. That's not the same. Feels like it. He didn't argue. He just looked at me. Too long, too soft. Don't let anyone use you, Lyra. Then stop looking at me like you already did. The words slipped out before I could catch them. Kieran froze. His breath hitched once, then quietly. I didn't mean to. I know. And that was the worst part. He meant every boundary he set, every careful distance, every attempt at self-control. That's what made it hurt. He was good, he was loyal, and he was hers. I turned away first, pretending to shuffle papers, pretending I didn't feel the bond thrumming like a violin string between us. He left without another word. The archives were silent again, except for one sound, the soft crackle of paper. When I looked down, the Thornbond letter I'd locked in its box was open on my desk. The ink shimmered faintly, letters bleeding together until new words appeared at the bottom of the page. Blood remembers. Moon forgives. Choose wisely, Silver Heart. My pulse stuttered. Yeah, okay, I muttered. Sure, perfectly normal Tuesday. My wolf sighed. You really attract drama. Apparently, I whispered back, staring at the glowing script. And now it's writing back. Chapter 4. You'd think after spontaneous shapeshifting, discovering illegal sigils in your workplace, and being flirted with by a poetic drifter, I'd at least get one normal night's sleep. You would be wrong. My wolf spent the dark hours pacing inside me, restless and wild. Every creak of the apartment made her ears flick. Every passing car smelled like danger. At 3 a.m., she started humming a sound that wasn't quite a growl and wasn't quite a song. When dawn hit, I gave up on rest, drank coffee that tasted like ash, and told my reflection, "We're fine." My reflection did not look convinced. By noon, the packhouse training field buzzed with energy. The sky was low and bruised, the humidity pressed against my skin like an apology. Kieran stood at the far end, clipboard in hand, muscles under that dark shirt doing the kind of unholy things that should be illegal in daylight. He was explaining defensive posture to Pax when he saw me. His expression didn't change, but the air did, charged, expectant. "Vale," he said, nodding. "You're late." I was busy avoiding further existential crises, I said. Traffic was emotional. Warm-ups. Now I rolled my eyes but obeyed, because despite my inner rebellion, part of me wanted him to be proud, wanted him to see I wasn't the fragile archivist anymore. We ran drills, block, pivot, shift. My muscles remembered faster than my pride. He corrected my stance once, stepping close enough that his breath skimmed the back of my neck. "Keep your weight forward," he murmured. "I'll keep it wherever you stop breathing on me," I snapped, and felt his laugh, low, surprised, against my spine. For half a heartbeat, everything else disappeared. Then Tessa's voice carried from the infirmary porch. "Kieran!" He jerked back like he'd been burned. "Break," he said hoarsely, and walked off. I watched him cross to her, easy familiarity, her hand finding his arm like it belonged there. She smiled up at him. He smiled back, small but real. My wolf made a wounded noise. I told her to shut up and went to grab water. That night, the moon rose huge and pale over the city. I stayed late in the archives, pretending to work, but really just tracing the lines of the Thornbond sigil with a pen, trying to make sense of its geometry. The symbol almost pulsed when the moonlight hit it. I was debating the wisdom of holy water when the door opened behind me. Still here? Kieran, of course. He leaned in the doorway, half shadow, half temptation. Someone has to babysit the haunted stationery, I said. Also, hi. He stepped inside, closing the door softly. Patrol reports more rogue activity near the river. We think someone's coordinating them. And you think that someone likes arts and crafts? I gestured to the sigil. He crouched beside me, studying it. The closeness was intoxicating. The air between us shimmered with heat that had nothing to do with magic. I think whoever it is, he said, wants you rattled. Mission accomplished. He looked at me then, really looked. Lyra, I keep trying to protect you, but every time I get close, you remember you belong to someone else. I finished for him. He winced. It's not that simple. Sure it is, I said softly. You love her. You want me. The universe has a sick sense of humor. That's the whole story. He opened his mouth, closed it again. I don't want to hurt anyone. Too late, I whispered. The silence stretched, filled with everything we couldn't say. Then, as if summoned by our collective bad choices, a low growl rolled through the hallway. Kieran was on his feet in an instant. Stay here. Absolutely not. He didn't argue, just handed me his spare silver baton. Fine. But behind me we slipped into the corridor. The lights flickered. The air smelled of rot and ozone. At the far end, a shape moved. Too fast, too wrong. Rogue, Kieran hissed. It lunged. Kieran met it halfway, striking with practiced precision. I swung the baton when another shadow peeled off the ceiling. 2 rogues. Perfect. Adrenaline took over. My wolf surged, bones stretching, breath catching, half-shifted, caught between human and fur. I slammed the baton into a skull, ducked claws that whistled past my ear. Kieran's snarl echoed mine. When the first rogue fell, the second hesitated. Its gaze flicked over my shoulder, and a new voice cut through the chaos. Move! Ronan Dax barreled through the broken door like a storm with good timing. He slammed the rogue into the wall, blade flashing once, twice. The thing crumpled, bleeding dark against stone. Kieran rounded on him. Why the hell are you here? Ronan wiped his blade on his sleeve, unbothered. Following the stench of bad decisions. Found you two instead, uninvited. Alive, Ronan countered. Then his gaze slid to me, sharp and unsettlingly gentle. You okay, River Wolf? My wolf wagged. Traitor. I'm fine, I said, breathless. Thanks for the assist. He nodded toward the fallen rogues. They weren't alone. I caught their trail near the bridge. Someone's driving them with old magic. Kieran stiffened. You're guessing. Ronan looked at him with faint amusement. I don't guess. I survive. The two of them stared each other down, alpha wanderer against loyal enforcer. The tension was electric. I stepped between them before testosterone could summon lightning. Gentlemen, could we maybe not do the growly dominance thing in my office? I just vacuumed. Neither moved. Fine, I said. You can both glower later. Right now, we need to figure out why rogues keep coming for me. Kieran tore his gaze away from Ronan, jaw tight. We'll sweep the area. You're going home. With an escort, Ronan smirked. I volunteer. Not a chance, Kieran snapped. I sighed. Boys, I'm right here. They ignored me. Finally, I held up both hands. You know what? Flip a coin. I'll walk myself home while you two measure your moral integrity. Kieran swore under his breath. You're infuriating. Thanks, I said. I'm multi-talented. Ronan chuckled low, something warm sparking in his eyes. She's right, Holt. She doesn't need a leash. Not a leash, Kieran said tightly. A guard. Maybe she needs neither, Ronan murmured. For a moment, the three of us just stood there, the moonlight pouring through the cracked window and painting us silver. My wolf looked from one man to the other and whispered, 2 paths, 1 storm. I shivered. Kieran noticed. He reached out, hesitated, then dropped his hand. Go home, Lyra. Please. Ronan tilted his head, eyes soft. Let me walk you. Not as alpha, not as anything else, just as company. The bond with Kieran pulled one way, something older tugged the other. Fine, I said at last. Both of you. But no fighting, I just got the blood out of my shoes. We walked through the sleeping city together, an awkward triangle of instincts and denial. The streets glittered with rain, and every shadow felt alive. Ronan hummed some half-forgotten tune under his breath. Kieran kept scanning rooftops like he expected the sky to fall. When we reached my door, they both stopped. Kieran spoke first. Lock everything. Call me if anything feels off. Ronan added, dream of something that isn't him. Wow, I said. Zero pressure. Kieran's eyes met mine, full of 100 things he'd never say. Good night, Lyra. Ronan touched 2 fingers to his temple in a lazy salute. Good fight, Riverwolf. They turned opposite directions, shadows disappearing into the city. I stood there in the doorway, the bond humming low, the sigil still glowing faintly behind my eyes, and thought, apparently the universe looked at my love life and said, needs more plot. To Chapter 5. The morning after the attack, the city felt hungover. Not just me, everything. The air tasted metallic, heavy with leftover moonlight and fear. My wolf paced inside me, unsettled, as if the night had left claw marks under her ribs. Every sound, the flap of a pigeon's wings, the hiss of the espresso machine at the cafe below, felt amplified. I pulled my hoodie tighter and shoved a bag of cinnamon rolls at the barista, who was also my favorite gossip source. Bribe for intel, I said. You hear anything weird about last night's rogue incident? She leaned in. You mean besides the screams and the power outage? Some people said they saw shadows moving against the light, like it wasn't wolves fighting. Something else. Excellent, I muttered. Just what I needed. Ambiguous horror. By the time I got to the archives, the council had already plastered the place with patrol warnings. Kieran's signature was at the bottom. Of course it was. My chest hurt reading his neat handwriting, efficient, cold, like he'd scolded his heart into silence. I tried to focus on work, but every time I closed my eyes, flashes from last night replayed. Kieran's voice, sharp and protective. Ronan's blade gleaming in the dark. The rogue's eyes, empty as graves. And those sigils, those cursed crescents, still danced behind my eyelids. By dusk, I couldn't sit still anymore. I went to Juno's bar, the Howl and Halo, because nowhere else felt safe or loud enough to drown out my thoughts. It was karaoke night. A girl with blue hair was butchering a love song on stage, and half the bar was cheering ironically. Juno slid a soda toward me, grinning. Your usual existential crisis, extra ice? Make it a double. She leaned on the counter. You look haunted. Again, rogues, sigils, male drama. Take your pick. Her grin widened. Ah, yes. You have a type. Emotionally unavailable and probably cursed, don't forget broody, I said. That's my kink. We laughed, until the door opened and the bar went quiet. Ronan Dax walked in like he owned the place, or like the place had been waiting for him. The crowd parted around him instinctively, the way mortals do around predators who don't try to be scary, they just are. He wore the same scuffed jacket, the same confident slouch. But under the neon light, I noticed the faint pattern of scars curling up his neck, like something had once tried to burn symbols into his skin. Juno whistled low. Well, well. That's a walking distraction. Behave, I hissed, but my heart was already drumming in my throat. Ronan's eyes found me instantly. Gold with flecks of gray, like stormlight. His smile was easy, but not careless. Lyra Vale, he said. Knew you'd be somewhere loud. Couldn't resist the smell of burnt hope and cheap beer. Couldn't resist the scent of you. My wolf wagged her metaphorical tail again. She really needs better taste, I muttered. Ronan took the seat beside me. You always talk to her out loud? I blinked. How I can hear her, he said, low and amused. Most can't. Late awakenings are messy, but your wolf's voice? She sings. My throat went dry. You talk like a fortune cookie. And yet, he murmured, leaning in, you're listening. I swallowed. Why are you here? He didn't answer right away. His gaze shifted to the crowd, scanning, calculating. Because someone painted those sigils again, this time near the riverbank. The ink's fresh. Wonderful, I said. We're being haunted by art students with poor boundaries. He smiled faintly. This isn't a joke. The Crescents are calling, and they're calling you Juno, ever the professional, pretended not to eavesdrop but stayed within arm's reach of the baseball bat behind the bar. I frowned. Why me? Because you woke something, he said. When your wolf rose that night, the bond between worlds flickered. Old rights remember power like that. Translation: I accidentally subscribed to the supernatural newsletter nobody wants. He chuckled. Something like that. Before I could ask more, the door slammed open again. Kieran. He filled the doorway like Judgment Day. Drenched from the rain, dark eyes fixed on us, hand hovering near the weapon at his belt. Dax, he said flatly. You and I need to talk. Ronan didn't move. Funny, we're talking now, outside, Juno sighed. If anyone bleeds on my floor, I'm charging double. I slid between them before the testosterone set off the sprinklers. Enough! You two are not turning my safe space into a pack meeting. Kieran's gaze snapped to me. He's dangerous. So are you, Ronan said calmly. I'm not the one stalking Omegas. I'm not the one neglecting them, Ronan shot back, voice like thunder wrapped in silk. Kieran's jaw clenched. The room's energy thickened, dominance radiating off both men like heat. Wolves nearby began shifting nervously in their seats. Stop, I hissed. Both of you. This isn't about egos. Ronan's eyes softened when they met mine. She's right. This is about survival. He reached into his jacket and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. A pendant, old and tarnished, engraved with the same thorned crescent sigil. Found this at the river. Smelled your blood on it. My stomach turned. That's impossible. I haven't been near. You bled during the fight last night, Kieran said quietly. When the rogue cut your palm. Someone collected it, Ronan finished, which means they're building a link. The world tilted. The pendant in Ronan's hand pulsed faintly, reacting to me. My wolf growled deep in my chest. What does that mean? I whispered. Ronan's voice gentled. It means you're marked. And if we don't stop whoever's behind this, that mark will become a bond. A bond. My blood, my fate. Kieran stepped closer, protective instinct radiating off him. You're not touching her, he snapped. I'll handle this. Ronan's gaze flicked to him, unamused. You can't protect her from magic you don't understand. And you can? I've survived it, Ronan said simply. The pendant glowed brighter between them, light catching the rain still clinging to Kieran's hair, the shimmer outlining the tension like a prophecy. Enough, I said, voice cracking through the air. The pendant flickered, then went dark. Both men turned to me, startled. I'm not some prize in your power struggle, I said. You want to help? Great. Then start acting like it, because right now I'm 2 minutes away from throwing both of you into the nearest river. For once, neither argued. Kieran exhaled, stepped back. You're right. He turned to Ronan. We work together for now. You cross a line, I'll end you. Ronan smirked faintly. You can try. I pinched the bridge of my nose. This is going to be fun. Later, when the bar emptied, Ronan stayed behind to help me wipe down tables, mostly to annoy Kieran, who lingered near the door like a stubborn shadow. Ronan spoke quietly, almost to himself. You ever wonder why your wolf woke the way she did? Saving a child, not during a full moon? Because fate likes drama? Because she was waiting, he said, gaze distant, for something to anchor her. For a name, maybe even for me. I looked at him sharply. "You don't even know me." He smiled, sad and sure. "That's where you're wrong. I dreamed you, once. Before you were born, my mouth went dry." "That's creepy." "Probably," he agreed. "But true." Before I could decide whether to laugh or run, Kieran's voice cut in. "Lyra, we're leaving." Now outside, the rain had stopped, but the air still shimmered with electricity. Somewhere far off, a wolf howled, a low, mournful sound that made my wolf shiver. "Storm's coming," Ronan murmured. "Yeah," I said softly. "And apparently, it's personal." Chapter 6. The storm didn't hit that night. It waited, which honestly was worse. By sunrise, the city had gone still, quiet in that haunted, pre-light way that made the streetlights flicker like they were afraid of the dark. I barely slept. The image of that pendant pulsing with my blood burned behind my eyelids. At 7 a.m., my phone buzzed. "Training postponed. Stay in safe zones." Kieran translation. Something big was coming. I lasted exactly 30 minutes pretending to be calm before I ended up back in the archives, pacing between stacks like a caged thing. My wolf growled softly under my skin, restless. "I know," I muttered, "but sitting still won't stop the apocalypse." Halfway through reorganizing treaty files that didn't need reorganizing, the lights cut out. Then the emergency bulbs flared red. The sensor alarm screamed. I spun and froze. 3 rogues, bigger than before, their eyes clouded white, veins crawling silver. The smell of burnt ozone rolled off them. "Bad day to skip cardio," I breathed. I shifted halfway before they hit. The first one slammed me into a shelf. Ancient scrolls exploded around us like confetti at a demonic birthday party. I clawed, ducked, rolled. The second rogue lunged from behind, and I barely caught its throat before it caught mine. Then the door blew open. Kieran. He moved like the storm had finally stopped waiting. Silver batons flashing, every strike deliberate, lethal. He took one down in seconds, but another barreled into him, teeth sinking deep into his shoulder. He didn't even flinch, he just snarled and drove a blade through its chest. "Lyra!" he barked. "Behind me!" I would have listened, except the third rogue had other ideas. It crashed into me, claws raking my side, pain flared hot. My wolf surged up, roaring, and suddenly I wasn't half-shifted anymore. I was all fur, all fury. We slammed through the window in a shower of glass. I hit the pavement rolling, teeth sinking into the rogue's arm. Somewhere above, Kieran shouted my name. But before either of us could reach the other, another scent cut through the blood. Wild, sharp, familiar. Ronan. He dropped from the roof like a nightmare with perfect timing, landing in a crouch. The rogue turned toward him just in time to meet his blade. One clean stroke. Silence. Rain began to fall, finally breaking the heat. Kieran burst through the door, eyes blazing gold. "You followed her." Ronan wiped blood from his cheek. "Lucky I did." "Lucky?" Kieran snapped. "You're a walking invitation to chaos." "I'm an answer to it." Lightning cracked overhead, punctuating the standoff. I shifted back to human, shaking, bloodied, halfway between gratitude and fury. "Enough! Both of you, enough!" Kieran's gaze dropped to the wound on my ribs. His voice softened. "You're hurt." "It's shallow," I lied. He stepped forward anyway, hand hovering an inch from my skin. "Let me touch her and that mark will flare again," Ronan interrupted. "You'll feed it." Kieran glared. "You don't know that." "I do," Ronan said quietly, "because I've seen what happens when an alpha tries to claim what fate already tagged. The bond burns both." The rain thickened, cold and metallic. Kieran's hand fell away. "Then what do we do?" "Stop the source," Ronan said. "Whoever's bleeding her scent into those sigils, they're close. I can track them." Kieran hesitated. "We should take her to the healer first." "She's not broken," Ronan said, eyes on me. She's bait. The longer we wait, the stronger the link gets. The words landed like stones in my gut. Bait. Okay, I said. Then we end this. Tonight Kieran turned to me, voice low. You're not going anywhere near. I'm already near it, I snapped. Whatever this is, it wants me. I'm not hiding while everyone else bleeds for me. Ronan's mouth curved, proud. Told you she was louder than she looked. Kieran's jaw locked. Fine. But you don't leave my sight. Wouldn't dream of it, I said, and immediately regretted how it sounded. We followed Ronan through the industrial district. The old warehouses by the river, empty since the Pax factories moved north. The rain hissed against rusted metal, washing the streets clean of everything except tension. Ronan led with uncanny certainty, head tilted, nostrils flaring. Blood, wolf, ink. There. He pointed to a derelict warehouse with shattered windows and an open door yawning black. The sigil glowed faintly above the entrance, drawn in something that shimmered like mercury. Great, I muttered, haunted art gallery. Inside, candles burned in a circle around a figure in a red scarf. The same priestess who'd haunted my dreams for days. Her eyes were silver white, her hands dripped ink. Welcome, Silverheart, she said. You brought your guardians. How quaint, Kieran growled. End this. I'm not your enemy, she said sweetly. I'm the cure. Fate made a mistake when it tied you to a taken man. I'm offering you freedom. By stealing my blood, I snapped. By rewriting destiny, she corrected. The thorn bond will cut the imprint. The enforcer's heart will be yours. Isn't that what you crave? Kieran stiffened beside me. Don't. Ronan's voice went quiet. It's a trap. The priestess smiled. Oh, I know. She flicked her wrist. The sigils flared, and the floor erupted in light. Power slammed through me, raw and searing, pulling at the thread between Kieran and me. I gasped. He shouted my name and dove forward, but Ronan intercepted, throwing himself between us as the energy cracked like thunder. Pain tore through every nerve, my wolf screaming. Images flashed. Kieran's eyes, Tessa's smile, Ronan's hand on my shoulder, the blood sigil pulsing. The bond between Kieran and me stretched thin, then snapped like glass. I fell to my knees, gasping. The light went out. Silence roared. When I opened my eyes, the priestess was gone. Only the circle of extinguished candles remained, and two men kneeling beside me, both looking like the world had tilted off its axis. Kieran's voice shook. The bond. Broken, Ronan said softly. She's free. The rain outside had stopped. The air felt lighter. My chest did too. The ache that had lived under my ribs for weeks was just gone. Kieran reached for me again, tentative. Lyra! I caught his wrist gently, stopping him. Don't! Not yet. He closed his eyes, grief and relief tangled together. Ronan stood, offering me his hand. You should rest. The worst part's over, is it? I whispered. Not yet, he said, but you're not alone anymore. For the first time, my wolf was quiet, not broken, not angry, just waiting. Outside, dawn was breaking, washing the river in pale gold. The city breathed again, and I realized that every bond broken leaves room for something new to begin. Chapter 7. The next day, the world was too quiet. Not peaceful quiet, the kind of silence that follows an explosion, where you're still checking your limbs to make sure they're attached. I woke up on Aunt Sarah's couch wrapped in an emergency blanket, with my wolf humming low in my chest. Everything felt different, lighter, like the invisible thread that used to tie my heartbeat to Kieran's had finally snapped, and taken half my oxygen with it. When I sat up, Sarah handed me tea. You look like you wrestled the moon. Won, I croaked. Her smile was sad. That's the problem with winning. It still costs. I sipped the tea, throat raw. The bond's gone. I don't feel him anymore. She nodded. That's freedom. Doesn't mean it won't ache. I thought I'd feel triumphant. Instead, I just feel hollow. That's grief, darling. Don't confuse it for weakness. My wolf stirred uneasily. "He's close," she whispered. Of course he was. The knock on the door came soft but sure. Kieran. He looked like he hadn't slept either. Hair damp, eyes bloodshot, dressed in that same gray hoodie that had seen more tragedy than cotton should bear. "Lyra," he said, voice rough. Sarah stood, already grabbing her coat. "I'll be next door pretending I can't hear whatever this is." When she was gone, Kieran stepped inside. His scent, smoke, rain, exhaustion, hit me all over again. But it didn't pull anymore, it just lingered. "You shouldn't be on your feet," he said. "Pretty sure I've earned the right to stand." He tried to smile. It failed halfway. "You could have died." "You always say that like it's news." "I mean it," he said. "That ritual, if it had finished—" "It didn't," I cut in. "You and Ronan stopped it." At the mention of his name, Kieran's jaw tightened. He didn't stop it. He changed it. Whatever he did in that circle, Lyra, the way he shielded you, he wasn't just interfering, he was channeling it. I frowned. "You're saying he— what? Took the hit?" Kieran looked away. "Maybe more than that." "Ronan's alive," I said firmly, because the alternative was unthinkable. "He is," Kieran said, "for now." He left before dawn. That stung more than it should have. I set the mug down. "Why are you here, Kieran?" He met my eyes finally, and there it was. That haunted, familiar ache I'd tried to forget. "Because I needed to tell you I'm sorry." "For what?" "For wanting what I couldn't have. For pretending it was just instinct." My pulse stumbled. "You don't owe me that." "I do," he said quietly. When that bond snapped, I felt everything I'd buried. It wasn't just magic, Lyra, it was real. My throat tightened. "You love Tessa." "I do." His voice broke on it. "And I love you too." The words hit like a punch and a confession all at once. I laughed, a shaky, wet sound that wasn't really humor. Fate really is a comedian. "Lyra, no," I said, holding up a hand. "Don't." "You don't get to break a bond and then hand me pity wrapped in romance." He flinched. "That's not what this is." "Then what is it, Kieran?" I asked, heart raw. "Because all I ever did was want you." "And all you ever did was almost want me back." Silence. The rain started again outside, soft and relentless. He swallowed hard. "You're right." "I don't have the right words, good," I said, even though it hurt. "Because there aren't any." He nodded once, like a soldier taking orders, and turned to go. At the door, he paused. "For what it's worth, if things had been different—" "They weren't," I said softly. He left. My wolf made a low, keening sound. "He meant it," she whispered. "I know," I said, staring at the rain-slick window. "That's what makes it worse." By evening, I needed air, or distraction. Preferably both. So I did the stupid thing. I went looking for Ronan. The trail led north, past the docks where the city bled into wilderness. The storm had finally broken in full, the sky boiling gray. I found him by the old mill, shirt torn, bleeding from a gash along his ribs, but somehow leaning against a fallen tree like he'd ordered the storm himself. "Took you long enough," he said, voice hoarse but teasing. "You're bleeding." "So are you." I looked down. He wasn't wrong. My side still oozed faintly from the rogue's claw marks. "You could have said goodbye." "Didn't think you'd let me." "Probably not," I admitted. "I'm not great with farewells. Or men who walk into my disasters like they own them." His smile flickered. "You're not a disaster, Lyra. You're the reason the rest of us remember what survival looks like. You're terrible at flirting." "Then it's a good thing I'm not trying to flirt." I folded my arms. "So what are you trying to do?" "Finish what started in that circle," he said. "Whatever the priestess unleashed, she wasn't lying. That thorn bond didn't just break your tie to Kieran, it redirected it." My stomach dropped. To who? Ronan's gaze was steady. To me. Lightning flashed, thunder cracking right after, as if the universe wanted to underline the moment in dramatic italics. I laughed once, disbelieving. You're kidding. I wish I was. He stepped closer, slow, deliberate. When I shielded you, our blood mixed. The bond chose new ground. I took a step back, panic and something warmer warring in my chest. That's not how it works. It shouldn't, he agreed, but fate's been improvising since the night you shifted. The rain softened, turning to mist. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I wanted you to have a choice. And now. He reached out, brushing his thumb gently against my wrist, where the faint outline of a crescent had begun to glow beneath my skin. Now it's already happening. The mark flared, warm instead of painful. My wolf stirred, curious, not afraid. Ronan's voice dropped. I won't claim you unless you ask. But you need to know, whatever's chasing you isn't done. The priestess wanted power. That mark means you're the key to it. Perfect, I muttered. I've always wanted to be a human Horcrux. He chuckled despite himself. You're impossible. Occupational hazard. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of pine and smoke. For a moment, standing there under the storm, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't scared. For the first time, I wasn't running from my wolf or Kieran or fate itself. I was running toward something. Ronan, I said quietly, if this bond is real, what happens now? He smiled, soft, dangerous, certain. Now we find out what the moon wants from us. And just like that, the storm broke again, lightning flashing so bright it painted his eyes gold. My wolf lifted her head. Home, she whispered. And for once, I didn't argue. Chapter 8. By the time we made it back to the city, the moon had turned red. Not poetic red, warning red. Every wolf in the territory could feel it, a slow vibration under the skin, like the world was holding its breath. Ronan and I stayed off the main roads. He moved like a shadow that knew exactly where to fall. I followed, close enough to catch the faint scent of metal and rain that clung to him. My wolf was restless, half purring, half snarling. The new bond pulsed quietly between us, a low rhythm that matched our steps. When we reached my apartment, the power was out. The city's skyline blinked dark, save for the far edge of pack territory where candles glowed in patterns only wolves could see. They're gathering, Ronan said softly. For what? The priestess doesn't lose. She moves. He looked at me then, eyes catching the thin light. If we end this tonight, the bond will seal itself. You and me, no going back, I exhaled. And if we don't? Then she'll use it. Twist it. The mark on your skin will turn you into what she wants, a weapon, not a woman. Fantastic, I said. Every girl's dream. Get magic. Lose free will. Ronan's mouth curved. You still have that. Choice. Always choice. He held out his hand. The mark on my wrist flared in answer to his, the crescent lines almost meeting. Ready, Riverwolf? Define ready. Still walking toward the danger. Then yeah, I said. Let's go. We found the priestess by the river. Always the river. It shimmered under the blood moon light, reflecting 3 perfect crescents. Her sigil, rippled and wrong. She was waiting on the water's edge, the red scarf trailing like a banner. I told you, Silver Heart, she called. You were meant for more than servitude. You could unmake the pack that caged you. Funny, I said. I'm feeling pretty uncaged right now. Her smile was sharp. Because he's feeding you strength. You don't even know what he is, do you? I glanced at Ronan. He didn't flinch, but something in his stance went very still. Tell her, the priestess purred. Tell her what you were before you were a wanderer. Ronan's jaw tightened. It doesn't matter. It matters, she hissed. He was my alpha once, my chosen heir. Until he defied the right and ran, I blinked. You what? Ronan's gaze met mine. I walked away from her coven. From everything, I wouldn't bind wolves to her will. She thinks this bond can restore what she lost, he said, voice low. Power through you, through us. The priestess raised her hands, moonlight twisting around her fingers. Power doesn't ask permission. Blood does, and hers, she pointed at me, is already singing. The river surged upward like it had heard her. Water rose in impossible shapes, tendrils, claws, faces screaming through foam. Ronan shoved me behind him, snarling, "Stay grounded, Lyra!" I didn't listen. I couldn't. The bond between us burned bright enough to blind. My wolf lunged through my skin, my breath catching fire. I stepped forward. The air around us shuddered. "No more," I said. "You don't get to write my story." The priestess laughed, but it faltered when I reached for Ronan's hand. Our marks met. Two halves of a sigil rejoining, gold flaring against red. The river screamed, the bond sealed with a sound like thunder cracking through glass. Power flooded my veins, hot, wild, alive. I could feel the moon pulsing in time with my heartbeat. The priestess staggered back, eyes wide. "This isn't yours anymore," I told her. She raised her hands to cast again, but the water betrayed her, freezing midair, then crashing down in a wave that swallowed her whole. When it receded, she was gone. Only silence remained, and the red light faded to silver. Ronan's knees buckled. I caught him before he hit the ground. His blood smeared my hands, dark against the glow of the newly healed mark on my wrist. "You're hurt," he smiled faintly. "Price of power." "Always is," I shook my head. "No more prices." He brushed his knuckles against my cheek, gentle despite the tremor in his hand. "You ended her magic." "We ended it," I corrected. "Together." He chuckled, then winced. "You sound like a Luna already." "I'm not anyone's Luna," I said. "I'm me." "Good," he murmured. "That's the only kind worth following." I didn't mean to kiss him. It just happened. The kind of kiss that felt like breaking and healing all at once. His pulse steadied under my hand, his breath warm against mine. The bond hummed softly, no longer burning, just there. When we finally pulled apart, the first threads of dawn were climbing over the skyline. The city breathed again. The moon dipped low, sated. Ronan looked up at it, and then at me. "So, River Wolf," he said. "What now?" I smiled. "Now we live." On our terms, he grinned, teeth sharp in the new light. Dangerous answer. Wouldn't have it any other way. We walked back toward the waking city, side by side, leaving the river quiet behind us. That night, I wrote in my archive ledger for the first time in weeks. Entry 14. The moon takes what it wants, but sometimes if you're stubborn enough, it gives back. My wolf purred in approval. The new bond pulsed steady, calm. And somewhere far away, a child I'd once saved looked up at the same moon and laughed. Proof that fate, for all its cruelty, still had a sense of mercy. Apparently, my love life had come full circle. From heartbreak to hellfire to hope. Or, as I preferred to call it, Wolves Gone Wild, the redemption arc. Epilogue. It's strange how quiet the world sounds when the war inside you finally stops. The city hums again, soft, steady, alive. For the first time in months, the moon doesn't feel like a threat. It feels like a lullaby. Ronan and I moved north, beyond the river where the pack's lights fade into wild hills. He rebuilt an old garage into something between a home and a sanctuary. Wolves drift through sometimes, lost ones, rogues looking for peace instead of power. We never turn them away. During the day, I still work in the archives. Paper under my fingers grounds me. History behaves better than destiny. I catalog oaths, treaties, and the names of the ones who didn't make it. At night, I come home to the sound of Ronan's laughter and the smell of pine smoke. My wolf sighs and calls it good. Kieran visits once a month. He and Tessa are rebuilding too. She took over the healer's clinic. He trains new enforcers who think duty is a weapon instead of a promise. We don't talk about what we were. We talk about what we survived. That's enough. He brought me a gift once, a single silver coin stamped with the pack crest. For luck, he said. I thought you didn't believe in luck. I didn't, he said. Then I watched you rewrite fate. We don't need to say goodbye. Some bonds don't end. They just stop hurting. Ronan still calls me Werewolf. Every time my chest warms like a hearth relighting. Sometimes he catches me staring at the sky and he grins. Talking to the moon again? Arguing with her, I say. She started it. We sleep under open windows. The wind carries the scent of cedar, ink, rain, and freedom. The mark on my wrist glows faintly when the light hits it. No longer a curse, just proof that even broken things can shine. I write a new ledger entry each full moon. Entry 27. We choose each other, not because fate commands it, but because the world feels less like a battlefield and more like a promise when we do. The river keeps whispering, the wolves keep healing. And sometimes, when the moon climbs high enough to turn everything silver, I swear I can hear the ghost of the priestess's voice, not angry now, just curious. Who are you, Silver Heart? And I answer, quietly, but sure. Home. Because that's what he calls me. Because that's what I became. And because, apparently, my love life really did need a rebrand. From tragedy to wolves gone wild, the redemption arc. If you'd rise as alpha of your own life, share this story with your pack. And if you believe that fate might bend for love, hit subscribe.